Welcome to the Having It All podcast, the show about what it takes to live an abundant, loving life. My name is Matthew Bivens, and each week I'm helping you get out of your head so that you can truly have it all. Let's do it. What's going on, everybody? Matthew Bivens here. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Having It All podcast. On today's episode, we are taking a look at ourselves. We're going to be talking about radical self-introspection, and I'm going to leave you all with the 5 W's that are going to allow you to take a look at the areas of your life that might be misaligned. Now, both of those things I just said, radical self-introspection and the 5 W's, they come from another source. They come from a blog, and it is something I need to bring up because this episode was inspired by a listener email. The listener was a man by the name of Benjamin Foley. Benjamin, thank you so much for listening to the show and for reaching out to me because you absolutely inspired this episode by your writing. So for you all listening, Benjamin is a blogger. He has a blog called fullyrichlife.com, and he has some amazing content on there about living a fully rich life. Benjamin's done a lot of work on himself to overcome fears and overcome anxieties, and he is so transparent and so vulnerable and really kind of puts it all out there for people to see what he's about and how he has grown and shifted and healed in his life. And I really, really resonated with Benjamin's message and his approach. And there's a lot of similarities in how Benjamin approaches life, especially fear and the things that he does. And so it was cool to connect with Benjamin, and I had no idea that our email would inspire this episode. So Benjamin, if you're listening, thank you. Thank you so much for reaching out and for being bold enough to write about this stuff. So again, you can check out Benjamin's website, fullyrichlife.com. And this episode is inspired by his article called Advice on Anxiety No One Tells You. So I'm going to put links to Benjamin's website and this article in the show notes for this episode. And you can find the show notes over at firesidernetwork.com. So like I said, we're going to be talking about this idea of radical self-introspection and how important it is, how crucial it is, you have to be doing this if you want to make meaningful, healing, transformative shift in your life. You have to be taking a look at yourself. You have to be examining the thoughts, the relationships, the ideas, the behaviors, the habits that you have. Because it's in that self-examination that you're really going to understand more about how you're currently showing up in life, about how you're currently thinking, about what makes you tick. And you're going to start to see that the programming, the stories, the concepts and the perceptions that you have adopted and the scripts that you're running over and over and over that are sapping your health, that are sapping your energy, that are keeping you stagnant. It's only through what Benjamin calls this radical self-introspection that we can do that. And if you're listening to this show, I know that that's something that you're already doing, because you're not going to be listening to this topic if you aren't already the type of person who is introspective. So this is really great, and I'm looking at the article right now. Benjamin outlines these 5 W's, and the 5 W's are something that most of us have heard in any high school language arts class, college English class, something like that, because these are the 5 W's that really are the basis of a great storyline. But they can be used if you think about them in an introspective type of way. They can really be used to highlight those areas of your life where you are misaligned, where you are not moving on a healing, on a growth path. And so let's go through these 5 W's And after each of them, maybe even pause the episode. After I go through the 5 W's, pause after each one and spend 30 seconds, 60 seconds just thinking about them for yourself, because you can use this episode literally as an exercise in introspection. This is a perfect opportunity for that. So the first W is who. The questions you want to be asking yourself are, who do you spend most of your time with? Are these people adding stress to your life? Are they aiding your growth? Nobody is sacred here. When you're asking this question, no one is sacred. Not your family, blood, not your blood relatives, not your spouse. You really want to be very aware of the energy that the people that you have closest to you are contributing to your life, because that energy can either take you up or it can take you down. And most of the time, I would bet that we know when we have people in our lives whose energy drains us. Yet for some reason, I think it's fear, that fear of separating, that attachment and that dependency on that person is going to keep us there. But you want, again, this is just an exercise. So you want to be thinking about who you spend most of your time with and whether or not these people are adding stress to your life or are they aiding in your growth. And depending on how bold you want to get, how courageous you want to get, removing those people from your life who are not helping you to heal is crucial in your healing, in your growth, in your transformation. So that's the first W, who. Second W is what. What are you working on? What do you do between the hours of 8 and 6? What do you spend your time doing? What do you consume through your 5 senses? What are you waiting for? What's holding you back? What do you believe that is keeping you from healing? I want to add one more to that. What games are you winning at? Because we're all playing games, and all of us are winning those games. Some of us are winning the game of being a victim. Some of us are winning the game of being our own biggest critic. Some of us are winning the game of loving as close to unconditionally as we possibly can. So what games are you playing? I love that Benjamin has in here, what do you consume through your 5 senses? Because I think a lot of times we don't give enough credit to the things that we consume with our eyes and our ears. I'm talking about the news that we watch, the different things that we read, the things that we listen to, because those things have such a tremendous impact on our energy, on our perspective, on the context, the lens through which we look at life. They are so easily influenced by the things that we listen to and the things that we watch and the things that we read. Almost as much as those people that we have around us. Most of us have heard that phrase that you are the 5 people you hang out with. Well, we are also the environment in which we place ourselves. Those work environments, those school environments, those home environments. So, understanding and taking a look at what you consume through your 5 senses is crucial in being aware of the energy that is being just pumped into you, and whether it's loving, healing, transformative energy, or if it's fear-based, draining, unhealthy energy. So the first W was who, second W was what, the third W is when. When do you go to bed? When do you wake up? When do you leave work? When are you going to make a move? When are you going to start healing yourself? When were you the happiest? I love the when are you going to make a move? It reminds me of the video put out by Steve Harvey. Yes, that Steve Harvey, the comedian, the actor, the host of Family Feud. There was a video that went viral, for lack of a better word, and I actually think I did an episode on this video. Steve Harvey is speaking to the Family Feud audience, I think after the show wrapped up. He just hung out and he's just talking to them. And he's talking about this idea of jumping and how we must, in our lives, make a leap of faith and jump into the unknown with nothing more than faith that our talents, our skills, our gifts, our own unique amazingness will catch us and will allow us to soar. And so I love that Benjamin in here has, when are you going to make a move? Because a lot of time that move that we're going to make is that leap into the unknown. It's that step off of the cliff where all you have is faith that a bridge is going to appear under your foot. And man, that's the hardest shit ever. I mean, from my own personal experience, because over the past number of years, I have inspired myself to make those leaps again and again. And I will tell you that they are always terrifying. They're always terrifying. Even after I've just made a leap that I thought I couldn't imagine doing something scarier. You know, the universe presents you with a circumstance where you're like, okay, here's another opportunity. And even though I know that it's going to be okay, and I know that it'll be more than okay, that I'm going to feel on fire with life and energy and love afterwards, it's still hard as shit to do. So I really love that Benjamin has this in his article. When are you going to make a move? It's a great question to ask yourself, because we're all, I think, standing on the threshold of something, standing at a crossroad, standing at the edge of the doorway of the airplane with the parachute on our back, just like waiting to jump into that nothingness. I think most of us, at least, have an area in your lives right now where you know you're at that position. So when are you going to make a move? So the first W again, who, second what, third when, fourth W is why. Why are you in your job? Why do you feel like you need to get the next thing? Why do you need external validation? Why are you reading this article? Or in this case, why are you listening to my voice on this podcast? Why do you do anything that you do? I think this is such a crucial question for us to ask ourselves and to get very clear on for ourselves. And that's our bigger why in life. Like, what is that thing that just gets you out of bed and fires you up and inspires you and just creates that burning passion for you to just pour yourself into every day? You know, like, do you have that for yourself? I think there's a lot of people who are walking around this world, as I like to call IOUs, imbalanced, overstressed, and uninspired. Uninspired. The inspired life creates so many different results than the uninspired life, and has very different lens through which it looks at life. So for you, ask yourself these whys. Why do you do anything that you do? Remember, this is just introspection. There are no correct or incorrect answers. And what's great about these types of exercises is that it really gives you an opportunity to be courageous and to just sit with whatever comes up. I'm going to take a quick tangent, because the idea of just whatever comes up and being okay with it has been something that I've worked on this week, actually. And what I mean by that is, this week, I just wanted to recognize when I felt inspired to do something and then to do it. Not think about it, but just to do it. And so if a person popped into my mind this week, I would email them or I would send them a text message and let them know, hey, you just popped in my mind. I don't have anything I want to ask you or anything that I need from you. I'm just saying, hi, how are you? You popped into my mind. And I have done that, I think, every day this week. I've done that with family members. I've done that with people I used to work with. I did it with my sister. My sister right now, she's not talking to me, and it's one of the craziest, most interesting, most um, fascinating, and biggest opportunities for a lesson in my life is having a family member who currently will not speak to me. And that's been the case for a couple of weeks. And if you've listened to this podcast at all for the past, I don't know, 20 or 30 episodes, then I've unraveled part of that story. So this is just an updated chapter in that story. But I felt inspired to reach out to my sister. And I did. I just sent her a little text message. I said, hey, I come in peace. I had, she was experiencing something in her life, and I just wanted to send her love. That was it. And so, it goes back to this question of this introspection, just being okay with whatever comes up. And so for me, I was just okay with whatever came up this week in terms of people, and I acted on it. And so when you're going through your own introspective process, you don't necessarily need to act on it, but just be okay with whatever comes up. Don't judge it, and don't brush it off, because it's coming up for a reason. So back to the 5 W's. We have covered 4. We've covered who, what, when, why, and the final W is where. Where in the world do you live? Where do you sleep? Where do you work? Where are you trying to get to? Where is this path leading you? And where do you want to be? I love the question, where are you trying to get to? Because it makes me think of Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and beginning with the end in mind. So where you're trying to get to is all about your end. What does that end in mind for you? And that end in mind ties itself is directly connected with your why, your bigger why, your personal mission statement. And then I love that Benjamin has the next question of, where is this path leading you? Because the path that you're on right now may not be leading you to where you want to be. I had a conversation with a friend of mine earlier today, and he was doing his own introspection, and he was like, I've spent some quiet moments in the past 2 or 3 days just really asking myself, is the path that I'm on right now currently the path that I want to be on? Or have I allowed circumstances to sort of shift me onto this new path? And he was speaking about that in terms of business. Is this the business path that really is resonating with him, that he really wants to be on? And that's such an important question to ask yourself consistently, periodically. Like, is this path the one that I want to be on? And where is this path even leading me? Because if you don't ask yourself that question from time to time, you could end up years down a path that you don't want to be down. And you start to get towards the end, or maybe you reach the finish line of that path, and you're like, what the fuck is this? I am not where I thought I wanted to be. I'm not where I thought I was going to be. A lot of times this comes up with people's careers. They go down this path of, well, let me work in this job, and let me put in all these hours, and let me make that money, and let me get that, that nice 401k. And I know that by the time I get to the end of this path, I'm going to be so happy and so full of joy and so full of peace and harmony and health. And then they get there and they're all jacked up. It's that IOU syndrome. Totally imbalanced, totally overstressed, completely uninspired. And so it's so important to just ask yourself, where is this path leading you? And once you start to figure out where the current path that you're on is leading you, you can just simply ask, okay, is that where I want to be? Is that end point where I want to be? And so I'm going to mix a couple of frameworks now, because we just been talking about the 5 W's, but I think with this last question, the where is this path leading you and where do you want to be? we can insert in here the 6 F's. The 6 F's, and that's part of the having it all framework. You remember, the all in having it all stands for abundant, loving life. The abundance that's the experience. Are you experiencing an abundance? Are you being love? Are you feeling love? Are you giving love? Are you receiving love? And are you experiencing those throughout your entire life? All the different facets of your life. And that's what the 6 F's are: faith, family, friends, fitness, finance, and fun. So if you ever forget, maybe I need to say this more. Maybe at the top of each episode, I need to remind myself, and by doing so, you, what having it all is all about. Well, it's experiencing abundance, and it's experiencing love in your faith, in your family, in your friends, in your fitness, in your finance, and in your fun. Are you experiencing abundance and love in those areas? So, taking it back to Benjamin's article and the 5 W's, if you're asking yourself, where do you want to be? Well, you can get even more specific and say, where do you want to be in your faith? Where do you want to be with your family? Where do you want to be with your friends? Where do you want to be with your fitness, with your health? How about with your finances? And where do you want to be with your fun and those things in life that really fill you up and create that joy? These are such great questions to ask yourself. And you don't need to write your answers down. You can. You can if you want to, but you don't have to. Because by simply asking yourselves these questions, the universe starts to get to work for you. Just by asking yourself, where is this path that I'm on currently leading me? You're going to start those wheels turning, and you're going to start thinking about, okay, let me think about this path. Let me think about the career the trajectory that I'm on. Let me think about this partner, this person who I lay down in bed next to every night, who, I'm considering spending the next however many years with. Let me think about all of that stuff. All of those things start happening as you start asking yourself these questions. So Benjamin, man, thank you so much for putting this so succinctly and so clearly for us to really have that radical self-introspection, which, as you say, is a must. Radical self-introspection is a must. It's not an option. So because I know you listening, I know that you want to experience that healing. And healing can be in many different areas of your life. You could be looking for physical healing. Maybe you have physical ailments that you want to heal, but you might also be looking for emotional healing, mental healing, spiritual healing. If you are on a healing journey, on a growth journey, on a transformation journey for yourself, then radical self-introspection is a must. It's not an option. So Benjamin, again, thank you so much for writing this article. Again, Benjamin's article is called Advice on Anxiety No One Tells You, and his website is fullyrichlife.com. And this article is just fantastic in breaking down these 5 W's and just giving yourself some things to chew on, right? Some food for thought. Take this article, take this podcast, re-listen to this episode, go through those 5 W's, and just pause the episode after each of them, and just think. Set a timer for yourself. Give yourself 2 minutes, right? You could do this radical self-introspective exercise in 10 minutes. Listen to me go through the questions under who. Pause, think about them for 2 minutes. Then resume. Listen to me go through all the questions under what. Pause, think about it for 2 minutes. That's it. You do that simple thing, and I guarantee you will start seeing things shift. You'll start seeing things shift in your thoughts and how you relate to things, and perhaps even your actions. And that's where I believe your healing is going to come from. Taking that action, having that time to just think about where you're going, where you're at, how you relate to life. Think about those things that are impacting you all the time. Go through these 5 W's and start seeing those tiny little shifts in your life. And it really is about making small shifts. And I think this type of exercise will just help shine some light on areas where you might be misaligned and moving away from healing. And you can just shift them a little bit and get back on that healing path. So I appreciate you listening to this episode. I appreciate you allowing me to hang out with you for the last 20-something odd minutes. Thank you so much. Show notes for this episode, links to everything can be found over at firesidernetwork.com. That is the home of the Having It All podcast. And, if you've gotten something from this podcast or from this episode, I would very much appreciate a review on iTunes. Those reviews really go a long way in helping this show to reach more people's earbuds. So if you have a minute, it really only takes a minute, just leaving a review on iTunes would be fantastic. And if you have any feedback for me, any questions for me, if this episode resonated with you and you want to share it with me, I would love to hear from you. You can email me directly at my personal email address. And that's how Benjamin contacted me Benjamin went through my website. But you can either do that or go through my personal email address, which is mattcbivens@gmail.com, mattcbivens@gmail.com. And you can reach me and get that priority in my inbox. And you can also check out my website, which is simply matthewbivens.com. See some of the other things that I'm up to. I host another podcast with my wife, my amazing wife, Sarah. We host a podcast all about home birth and natural birth and holistic parenting and all of that great stuff. And that podcast is called Doing It at Home. And you can learn about that, some other projects I'm working on over at my website, matthewbivens.com. And that's enough plugging different things. So thank you so much for hanging out with me. I really do appreciate it. My name is Matthew Bivens, and here is to you having it all.